Jake Morrison sat alone at the human delegation table in the massive council chambers. The room was built to hold thousands, but today only 13 beings occupied the curved seating arrangement that spiraled up toward the domed ceiling. 12 of them were aliens from different worlds across the galaxy. One was human. The station orbited Kepler 442, a world chosen centuries ago as neutral ground for galactic politics. Through the massive windows, Jake could see the planet's blue and green surface slowly rotating below. It looked almost like Earth, which made this moment even harder to bear. Chancellor Vorthek of the Vorthek Empire stood at the central podium. His species looked like tall gray mantises with 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected the chamber's soft lighting. When he spoke, his voice came through the universal translator as cold and final. The Galactic Council has reached its decision regarding the human question, he announced. Humanity has proven itself to be a threat to galactic stability. Your species expands too quickly. You consume resources without thought for other civilizations. You establish colonies and systems that should remain untouched. Jake had heard these accusations many times over the past year. He had tried to explain that humans were explorers by nature, that they needed room to grow and discover new things. But the council never listened. They saw only numbers and charts showing human expansion across dozens of star systems. We have tried to work with your species, continued the Chancellor. We offered you membership in our council. We shared our technology and opened our trade routes. But you have shown that you cannot control your aggressive tendencies. The Zephyrian delegate rose from her seat. Her people were tall and thin with silver skin that seemed to glow in the chamber's light. Humans are a plague species, she said with disgust. They spread across worlds like a disease. They take what they want and leave nothing for others. Jake wanted to stand up and argue, but he knew it would do no good. The council had already made up their minds before this meeting even began. This was just a formal announcement of their decision. The Etherian representative spoke next. His species looked like living crystals that changed color when they moved. Human emotions make them unpredictable, he said in a voice like wind chimes. They act on feelings rather than logic. They cannot be trusted to follow galactic law. Other delegates nodded in agreement. The Karathi, who looked like large bears with 6 legs, rumbled their approval. The Sithrek, reptilian beings with scales that shifted from green to brown, hissed softly in their own language. The Altarians, who resembled tall blue humanoids with no hair, simply stared at Jake with their large black eyes. Chancellor Vorthek raised one of his 4 arms for silence. The council has voted. The decision is unanimous. Humanity has 30 standard days to accept our terms or face complete expulsion from galactic civilization. What are your terms? Jake asked, though he already knew the answer would be impossible to accept. First, humans must immediately halt all expansion beyond your current territory. No new colonies will be established. No exploration vessels will venture into unclaimed space. Second, human population growth must be controlled through methods approved by this council. Third, all human military vessels must be decommissioned except for a small defense force. Fourth, human trade and technology development will be supervised by council representatives. Jake felt his heart sink. These terms would essentially end human independence. They would turn his species into pets, kept in a cage and fed by their alien masters. No human government would ever accept such conditions. These terms are unacceptable, Jake said, standing slowly. Humanity will not surrender its freedom to expand and grow. We are explorers. It is our nature to reach for the stars and discover what lies beyond the next planet. Then you have chosen exile, the Chancellor replied without emotion. All human vessels will be banned from council space. No human will be permitted on any council world or station. All trade agreements are canceled immediately. Any human ship that enters council territory will be destroyed. Jake looked around the chamber at the alien faces staring back at him. Some showed satisfaction. Others seemed bored, as if this was just another routine matter to be handled. None showed any sympathy or regret. "You're making a terrible mistake," Jake said quietly. "Humans have contributed much to galactic civilization. Our scientists have made important discoveries. Our explorers have found new worlds and resources. Our traders have brought prosperity to many systems." "Your contributions are noted," the Chancellor said dismissively, "but they do not outweigh the threat your species represents to galactic order." Jake gathered his papers and data tablets from the table. Everything seemed pointless now, but he had to maintain some dignity in this moment. "Very well. I will deliver your decision to my government, but I want you all to remember this day. Remember that you had the chance to work with humanity as equals and chose instead to treat us as enemies. Your threats do not concern us," the Zephyrian delegate said with a laugh. "Humans are nothing without our technology and trade. Your ships use our star drive designs. Your colonies depend on our agricultural knowledge. Your weapons are based on our scientific discoveries. Within a few years, you will come crawling back, begging to accept our terms." Jake walked toward the chamber's exit, his footsteps echoing in the vast space. At the doorway, he turned back. "One last time, you underestimate humanity at your own risk. We survived ice ages and world wars and natural disasters that would have destroyed weaker species. We reached the stars with primitive rockets and determination. We do not crawl or beg, we adapt and overcome." He left the chamber without waiting for a response. In the corridor outside, Jake activated his communicator and sent a coded message to Earth. 3 words that would change everything for both humanity and the galaxy. "Negotiation has failed." The journey back to human space took 2 weeks aboard the transport ship Liberty. Jake spent most of the time writing his report and preparing for the difficult conversations ahead. President Lisa Carter would have to make an impossible choice: submit to alien control or face the unknown dangers of complete independence. As the ship approached Earth's orbital stations, Jake looked out at the blue marble that had given birth to his species. Somewhere down there, billions of humans were going about their daily lives, unaware that their future among the stars hung in the balance. Soon they would learn that the galaxy had rejected them. But Jake had a feeling that the galaxy would regret that decision sooner than anyone expected. 6 months had passed since humanity walked away from the Galactic Council. Captain Ben Hughes stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel New Horizons, watching the stars shift past as his ship jumped through hyperspace toward an unknown system. Behind him, his crew of 30 worked quietly at their stations, monitoring sensors and checking navigation data. "Jump complete, Captain," announced Navigator Lisa Park from her console. "We are now in the Kepler 1649 system. No previous exploration? Records from any known species?" Ben nodded and moved to the main view screen. 3 planets orbited the yellow star ahead of them. The inner 2 looked like barren rocks, but the third showed signs of water and atmosphere. "Take us in for a closer look," he ordered. Full sensor sweep of all 3 worlds. This was the 47th system the New Horizons had explored since leaving Council space. Ben's ship was just one of dozens of human vessels now spreading across previously unexplored sectors of the galaxy. President Carter had made the choice that everyone knew she would make. Humanity would not bow to alien demands. They would forge their own path among the stars. The decision had not been easy. The Galactic Council's trade embargo was complete. No alien ship entered human territory. Human vessels were banned from all Council stations and worlds. The aliens expected humanity to collapse within a few years without access to advanced galactic technology and established trade networks, but humans had always been good at adapting to impossible situations. "Captain, I'm detecting artificial structures on the 3rd planet," reported Science Officer Tony Walsh from his station. "They appear to be ruins of some kind. Very old, but definitely not natural formations." Ben felt the familiar excitement that came with discovery. "Any signs of current inhabitants?" "Negative, sir. No life signs, no energy readings. Whatever civilization built those structures is long gone." Ben made his decision quickly. "Prepare a landing party." I want a full archaeological team down there within the hour. While his crew prepared for the surface mission, Ben thought about the changes that had swept through human space since the Exodus began. The alien embargo had forced humanity to become self-reliant in ways they never imagined possible. Scientists like Dr. Amy Foster were reverse engineering abandoned alien technology found on dead worlds throughout the galaxy. Much of what the Council considered advanced technology was based on principles humans had already theorized but never implemented due to resource constraints. "Landing party ready, Captain," reported Security Chief Rachel Stone. Ben joined the team in the shuttle bay. As they descended toward the planet's surface, he could see the ruins spread across several kilometers. Massive stone blocks arranged in complex patterns that reminded him of ancient human cities. But with architectural styles unlike anything from Earth, the landing party set up their equipment among the ruins. Dr. Foster, who had joined this mission to study alien artifacts, immediately began scanning the structures with portable analyzers. "These ruins are at least 10,000 years old," she announced after examining her readings. "The construction methods are fascinating. They use some kind of molecular bonding technique that makes these stones stronger than modern alloys." While the science team worked, Ben explored the central plaza with Security Chief Stone. Carved symbols covered many of the stone surfaces. Some looked like star charts. Others appeared to be mathematical equations. All of it suggested a highly advanced civilization. "Captain, you need to see this," called Dr. Foster from inside what appeared to be a temple structure. Ben hurried over to find her standing before a wall covered in metallic panels that still showed faint energy readings. "These panels contain data storage devices," she explained excitedly. "Quantum-based memory crystals that are far more advanced than anything the Council species use. If I can access them, we might learn who built this place and what happened to them." It took 3 hours of careful work, but Dr. Foster finally managed to activate one of the panels. Holographic images filled the air above them, showing star maps and alien faces that looked somewhat like humans but with larger eyes and longer limbs. The images were accompanied by sounds that the universal translator slowly began to interpret. They called themselves the Wanderers, Dr. Foster translated as the alien voices spoke. They were explorers and builders who spread across thousands of worlds. "The message says they were forced to abandon this place because of persecution by other species who feared their rapid expansion." Ben felt a chill run down his spine. The story sounded familiar. The holographic message continued for several more minutes, describing how the Wanderers had tried to find peaceful solutions, but were eventually driven from their worlds by a coalition of alien species. The final images showed their ships fleeing into deep space, searching for a new home far from those who had rejected them. "How long ago did this happen?" Ben asked. Dr. Foster checked her readings. "According to the quantum decay patterns in these crystals, approximately 50,000 years ago." Ben stared at the fading holographic images. 50,000 years ago, another species of explorers had been driven from their homes by aliens who feared their expansion. The parallels to humanity's current situation were impossible to ignore. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the ship," announced communications specialist Dan Cooper over the landing party's comm system. "Priority message from Earth Command." Ben activated his portable communicator. The voice of Admiral Janet Ross came through clearly despite the distance. "All exploration vessels are to be advised that the embargo is having minimal effect on human operations. Industrial output is actually increasing as we develop our own manufacturing capabilities. More importantly, first contact protocols are now in effect for any non-Council species encountered." The message continued with details about humanity's growing network of allies and trading partners. Exploration teams were making contact with dozens of species the Council had never bothered to investigate. Some were primitive civilizations, just discovering fire. Others were advanced spacefaring races who had deliberately avoided Council contact. All of them were interested in working with humans who approached them as equals rather than subjects to be controlled. Ben looked around at the ruins surrounding his team. The wanderers had been forced to flee, but humanity was choosing a different path. Instead of running away, they were building something new. Instead of hiding, they were reaching out to find others who shared their values of exploration and independence. "Pack up the equipment," he ordered. "We're taking detailed scans of everything and heading to the next system. There are more worlds to explore and more civilizations to meet." As the New Horizons jumped back into hyperspace, Ben thought about the report he would send to Earth Command. The ruins of the Wanderers would interest the archaeologists, but the real discovery was the confirmation that humanity was not alone in their desire for freedom among the stars. Somewhere out there, other species were waiting to be found. Species who might understand that the galaxy was big enough for everyone, if only they had the courage to reach for it. Dr. Carl Roberts knelt in the dust of a dead world, carefully brushing sand away from what appeared to be carved stone. 2 years had passed since humanity left the Galactic Council, and his archaeological team had been exploring the Outer Rim. For 6 months, this world had no name on any star chart. The locals called it simply the Silent Place. "Hand me the quantum scanner," Carl said to his assistant, Dr. Maria Santos. The device beeped softly as it analyzed the stone structure buried beneath centuries of accumulated dust and debris. "These readings are incredible. This material is older than anything we've found so far." The excavation site stretched across several kilometers of barren landscape. What had once been a great city was now just scattered ruins poking up through the sand. Carl's team had been working here for 3 weeks, slowly uncovering evidence of a civilization that had vanished long before any current galactic species had developed space travel. "Professor, you need to see what we found in Section 7, called Dr. Janet Kim from across the dig site. She was standing next to a partially excavated building that appeared to be some kind of library or data center. Rows of crystalline storage devices lined the walls, most of them dark and lifeless after millennia of abandonment. Carl made his way through the ruins to where Janet was working. The building was remarkably well preserved, protected by some kind of energy field that his scanners could barely detect. Inside, holographic symbols still flickered weakly in the air above certain workstations. "The quantum resonance patterns in these crystals are unlike anything in our databases," Janet explained as Carl examined her findings. "They're not just data storage devices. They're quantum-linked archives that can reconstruct entire environments and experiences. It's like having a complete record of this civilization's history." Carl activated his portable power unit and connected it to one of the less damaged crystal arrays. Slowly, the room began to fill with ghostly images of tall humanoid figures, with elongated limbs and large heads. They moved through the holographic recreation of their city, going about daily activities that seemed both familiar and alien. "Can you access their historical records?" Carl asked. Janet worked at her scanner interface for several minutes before nodding. "I think so. The quantum encryption is complex, but our computers are finally making progress with the translation algorithms." The first clear images that emerged showed star charts and technological diagrams. The beings in the recordings called themselves the Architects, and they had built a civilization that spanned thousands of worlds across multiple star systems. Their technology was far beyond anything the current galactic species possessed, including abilities to manipulate matter at the quantum level and travel instantly between distant points in space. But as Carl and his team watched more of the records, a darker story began to emerge. The Architects had been explorers and builders, much like humanity. They had reached out to other developing species, offering knowledge and friendship, but their rapid expansion and advanced capabilities had frightened other civilizations. "Look at this section," Maria said, pointing to a holographic display showing what appeared to be a galactic map. "These red areas represent species that formed a coalition against the Architects. They were afraid that the Architects would eventually dominate the entire galaxy. The coalition had demanded that the Architects limit their expansion and submit to oversight by a council of other species. When the Architects refused, war had followed. But it was not a war of weapons and ships. The coalition had used subtler methods, cutting off trade and isolating architect worlds until their civilization began to collapse from within. Carl felt a chill as he recognized the parallels to humanity's current situation. The Galactic Council was using the same tactics against humans that had been used against the architects 50,000 years earlier. "There's more," Janet said grimly as she accessed deeper layers of the quantum archive. The isolation wasn't the end of their troubles. Something else happened. Something that destroyed not just the architects, but most of the galaxy's civilizations at that time. The holographic records showed images that made Carl's blood run cold. Massive machines emerged from the galactic core, unlike anything built by any known species. They moved systematically through space, dismantling planets and harvesting entire star systems. The architects called them the Harvesters, and their arrival marked the beginning of what the records described as the Great Silence. The Harvesters appear every 50,000 years, Carl read from the translated text floating in the air before them. They emerge from the deep core where no species dares to venture. They consume the technology and knowledge of the galaxy's most advanced civilizations, growing stronger with each cycle. The coalition species survived the last harvest only because the architects drew their attention and bore the brunt of the assault. Maria looked up from her scanner with a pale face. "Carl, if this timeline is accurate, then the next harvest cycle should be starting soon, within the next few years." Carl checked the quantum dating on the archive crystals. The mathematics were clear and terrifying. The last great silence had occurred exactly 50,000 years ago. The galaxy was due for another visit from the Harvesters. "We need to check for current signs of Harvester activity," Carl said urgently. "Janet, can you access any recent astronomical data from our sensor networks?" Janet worked quickly at her portable computer, linking to the Human Exploration Fleet's shared database. Within minutes, she had compiled reports from dozens of ships exploring different sectors of the galaxy. The pattern that emerged was unmistakable. There have been unexplained disappearances of deep space research stations near the galactic core, she reported. Quantum disturbances that don't match any known natural phenomena. Dead zones where space itself seems to be wrong somehow. And look at this. 3 Galactic Council survey ships have gone missing in the past 6 months, all in the same general region. Carl stared at the data with growing horror. The signs were all there, but the Council species were ignoring them, or explaining them away as natural phenomena. They had no knowledge of the Harvester cycles because all records of previous cycles had been destroyed along with the civilizations that possessed them. "We have to warn them," Maria said. "The Council species may have rejected humanity, but we can't let billions of beings die because of ignorance." Carl thought about the message he would have to send to Earth Command. How do you explain that the galaxy faces a threat older than recorded history? How do you convince people that ancient machines are about to emerge from the galactic core to harvest entire civilizations? But as he looked around at the ruins of the architect city, Carl knew they had no choice. The knowledge contained in these quantum archives might be the only thing standing between the current galactic civilizations and complete extinction. Humanity had been cast out by the Council, but that didn't mean they could stand by and watch the galaxy burn. The irony was bitter. The very species that had rejected humanity for being too aggressive and unpredictable might soon need those exact qualities to survive what was coming. The architects had been peaceful builders, and it had not saved them. Perhaps the galaxy needed explorers and fighters more than it needed diplomats and bureaucrats. Carl began copying the most critical data from the quantum archives to his portable storage devices. Whatever was coming from the galactic core, humanity would be ready for it, and maybe, just maybe, they could save the very aliens who had turned their backs on human civilization. The first Harvester ship emerged from the galactic core on a Tuesday morning, Galactic Standard Time. Deep space monitoring stations detected the massive energy signature 3 hours before visual contact was established. By the time the Galactic Council's emergency session convened, 12 more ships had appeared, Chancellor Vorthok stood before the assembled delegates in the same chamber where humanity had been expelled 2 years earlier. His forearms trembled slightly as he read the reports from their outer defense systems. "The entities are unlike anything in our databases," he announced to the shocked gathering. "They appear to be artificial constructs of enormous size and power. Our initial contact attempts have been ignored." The Zephyrian delegate, who had once called humans a plague species, now looked terrified as she studied the tactical displays. "Our border stations are reporting complete communication blackouts in sectors 7 through 12. Every ship we send to investigate simply disappears." Admiral Keth of the Korathi Defense Fleet rumbled his report from the military briefing station. "We deployed 3 battle groups to establish contact. All vessels were destroyed within minutes of engagement. The enemy weapons are beyond our current understanding. They seem to disintegrate matter at the molecular level." Chancellor Vorthak had seen the recorded footage from the brief encounters. The harvester ships were massive geometric structures that moved through space without any visible propulsion systems. When they encountered Galactic Council vessels, they simply extended beam weapons that reduced entire fleets to scattered atoms in seconds. "What do our scientists say about their technology?" asked the Etherean representative, his crystalline form shifting through nervous color patterns. Chief Science Advisor Zeln stepped forward with data tablets clutched in his tentacles. "Preliminary analysis suggests these machines operate on principles we do not comprehend. They appear to adapt their defenses in real time to counter any weapon system we deploy against them. Our most powerful fusion torpedoes have no effect whatsoever." The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Galactic Council commanded the most advanced military force in known space, with weapons capable of destroying entire planets. If their technology was useless against these harvesters, then no defense was possible. "How many worlds have gone silent?" Chancellor Vorthak asked quietly. 47 systems in the past 6 days, Admiral Keth replied grimly. "All outer rim colonies and research stations. The harvesters appear to be moving systematically toward the core worlds. At their current rate of advance, they will reach Kepler 442 within 2 months." Chancellor Vorthak looked around the chamber at the desperate faces of his fellow delegates. The Altarian representative was studying star charts with growing panic. The Sithric delegate kept hissing commands into his communicator, trying to coordinate evacuation plans for his home system. Even the normally calm Ethereans were showing signs of distress. "There must be something we can do," the Zephyrian delegate said desperately. "We are the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Surely our combined knowledge can find a solution." But even as she spoke, everyone in the chamber knew the truth. 3 days of continuous attacks had proven that Galactic Council technology was no match for the harvesters. Evacuation plans were being drawn up for the core worlds, but where could billions of beings flee when the enemy controlled space itself? "There is one possibility," Chancellor Vorthak said slowly, the words causing him physical pain to speak. "The humans." The chamber erupted in angry voices. "The humans are primitives," shouted the Korathi admiral. "Their technology is decades behind ours. What could they possibly do that we cannot?" "They are isolated beyond council space," added the Sithric delegate. "Even if we wanted their help, how would we contact them? Our own laws forbid any communication with expelled species." "Chancellor." Vorthak raised one arm for silence. 2 days ago, we received an encrypted transmission from human space. It contained detailed information about these harvester entities, including historical records of previous attacks dating back 50,000 years. The humans know what we are facing. The revelation stunned the assembly. How could humans possess such information? Demanded the Etherean representative. According to their message, they discovered ruins of an ancient civilization called the Architects. These beings faced a similar harvester attack in the distant past. The humans have studied the records and claim to understand the threat better than we do. The Zephyrian delegate who had despised humanity now found herself asking the unthinkable question. What do the humans want in return for their help? Chancellor Vorthak activated the main display screen, showing the text of the human transmission. They demand nothing. The message simply states that they are aware of the Harvester threat and are prepared to assist in defending galactic civilization. They request permission to enter Council space with a joint task force. This could be a trick, warned Admiral Keth. The humans may be using this crisis to force their way back into Council membership. But before anyone could respond, urgent alarms began sounding throughout the chamber. Emergency displays lit up with incoming reports from the front lines. The Harvester advance had suddenly accelerated. Entire star systems were going dark every few hours instead of every few days. The Vorthak home system is under attack, reported a communications officer with barely controlled panic. All orbital defenses have been destroyed. The planet itself is being systematically dismantled. Chancellor Vorthak felt his compound eyes dim with despair. His homeworld, with its billions of inhabitants and thousands of years of history, was being reduced to raw materials by machines older than recorded time. Everything his people had built would be gone within hours. "Sir, we have an incoming transmission from the human fleet," the communications officer announced. "They are requesting immediate permission to enter Council space." Chancellor Vorthak looked around the chamber one final time. The delegates who had voted unanimously to expel humanity now faced a choice between pride and survival. The species they had called a plague and a threat were offering to risk their lives to save civilizations that had rejected them. "Grant them passage," he ordered quietly. "All human vessels are hereby authorized to enter Council space under emergency." Protocols, the irony was bitter beyond words. The aggressive, unpredictable humans that the Council had feared might be the only hope for galactic survival. But as Chancellor Vorthak watched his homeworld die on the tactical displays, he realized that humanity's so-called flaws might actually be advantages against an enemy that could adapt to any logical strategy. The humans were coming. And for the first time since the Harvesters appeared, Chancellor Vorthak felt something that might have been hope. The galaxy had rejected humanity's offer of friendship, but perhaps it was not too late to accept their offer of salvation. Captain Ben Hughes stood on the bridge of the New Horizons as it dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of what had once been the Vorthak home system, where a thriving world with billions of inhabitants had existed just days before, now only scattered. Debris drifted in empty space. The Harvesters had stripped the planet down to its core, leaving nothing but asteroids and regret. "Contact Admiral Ross on the flagship," Ben ordered his communications officer. "Tell her we've arrived at the rally point." The human fleet that had assembled for this mission was unlike anything that had ever existed in galactic history. 60 ships from across human space, carrying crews trained in the chaotic fighting methods that had evolved during humanity's years of isolation. Each vessel had been modified with hybrid technology developed by Dr. Amy Foster's research teams, combining human innovation with alien principles learned from studying ancient ruins. "Admiral Ross is requesting all captains join the tactical briefing," reported Communications Officer Don Cooper. "The joint command structure is being established aboard the flagship Liberty." Ben transported over to find himself in a conference room filled with both human officers and surviving alien commanders from the Galactic Council forces. The tension was obvious. Many of the aliens still believed humans were too primitive to contribute meaningfully to the fight against the Harvesters. Admiral Janet Ross stood at the head of the table, her graying hair and steady gaze commanding respect from both species present. "Ladies, gentlemen, and honored allies," she began, "we face an enemy that has destroyed advanced civilizations for 50,000 years. Traditional tactics have failed completely. The Harvesters adapt to any logical strategy within minutes of engagement." Chancellor Vorthak, looking older and more tired than when he had expelled humanity from the Council, spoke with quiet desperation. "Our combined fleets have been reduced to less than 200 operational vessels. 3 entire species have been completely eliminated. The Harvesters will reach the core worlds within days." Dr. Amy Foster stepped forward with a portable holographic projector. "We've analyzed the architect records extensively," she explained. as images filled the air above the table. The harvesters are not just weapons. They're learning machines that grow stronger by absorbing the technology and knowledge of the civilizations they destroy. Every logical defense you attempt makes them smarter. Then how do we fight them? Demanded Admiral Keth of the Korathi. Forces, Ben found himself answering before he could think about the implications. We don't fight logically, we fight like humans. The alien officers looked confused, but Admiral Ross nodded with understanding. Human tactics evolved from centuries of warfare against other humans. We learned to be unpredictable because predictable. Strategies got you killed. We fight with emotion, instinct, and pure stubbornness. The first test of this theory came 6 hours later when a harvester probe ship detected the joint fleet. Instead of forming defensive formations like previous Council forces had done, the human ships scattered in seemingly random directions while transmitting false sensor readings and electronic noise. All ships execute Pattern Chaos 7, Admiral. Ross ordered over the fleet communication system. Ben watched his tactical display as 60. Human vessels began moving in ways that defied military logic. Ships dove toward planets, used gravity wells to slingshot in unexpected directions, and fired weapons at empty space to confuse enemy sensors. To any rational observer, it looked like complete madness, but it worked. The harvester probe, designed to counter logical military responses, struggled to adapt to tactics that made no sense. When it finally locked onto the human flagship, 3 other ships appeared from impossible angles to destroy it with concentrated fire. Target destroyed, reported Weapons Officer Rachel Stone with obvious satisfaction. First harvester kill goes to humanity. The success of the probe engagement led to larger battles as the combined fleet pushed deeper into harvester-controlled space. Human commanders led mixed squadrons of human and alien vessels in attacks that violated every principle of space warfare. They used damaged ships as decoys, pretended to retreat only to launch surprise attacks, and coordinated their efforts through methods that relied on gut instinct rather than computer calculations. Dr. Foster's hybrid technology proved crucial in these engagements. Human ships equipped with modified architect quantum manipulators could survive hits that would have destroyed normal vessels. More importantly, the combination of human unpredictability and ancient technology created weapons that the harvesters could not easily counter, but the war was far from one-sided. For every harvester ship destroyed, the enemy eliminated dozens of allied vessels. Entire human crews sacrificed themselves to save alien worlds whose inhabitants had once called them a plague species. Ben watched good friends die in battles that lasted minutes but determined the fate of billions. The turning point came when intelligence reports revealed the location of the Harvester Command Nexus deep within the galactic core. It was a massive structure that coordinated all Harvester activities across the galaxy. Destroying it would not eliminate the threat permanently, but it would force the machines back into dormancy for another 50,000 years. It's a suicide mission, Dr. Foster explained to the assembled fleet commanders. The Nexus is protected by hundreds of harvester ships and weapon systems we can't even identify. Any ship that gets close enough to plant the quantum charges we've prepared will be destroyed before it can escape. Jake Morrison, who had left his diplomatic post to serve as mission coordinator, looked around the room at faces both human and alien. We need volunteers for a one-way trip into the heart of enemy territory. Every human officer in the room raised their hand without hesitation. After a moment, Chancellor Vorthok and several other alien commanders did the same. The final assault took place 3 weeks later. A combined task force of 20 ships, led by Jake Morrison aboard a specially modified vessel carrying quantum charges based on architect technology, fought their way through layer after layer of harvester defenses. The battle was chaos in its purest form, with ships using ramming attacks, desperate gambits, and tactics that no sane military would ever approve. Jake's ship reached the Nexus core with only minutes to spare, before its shields failed completely. As he armed the quantum charges, he sent a final message to the surviving fleet. Tell them we remembered who we are. Tell them humans don't give up. The explosion that followed could be seen across half the galaxy. The Harvester Nexus collapsed into quantum foam, taking with it the coordinating intelligence that controlled the ancient machines. Across known space, Harvester ships simply stopped moving and began drifting back toward the galactic core. 5 years later, President Lisa Carter stood in the rebuilt council chambers on a new station orbiting a different world. The old Galactic Council had been dissolved, replaced by a loose confederation where humans played a central role. The surviving alien species had learned to respect human capabilities, though the relationship remained complicated. The memorial wall now contains the names of 3 million beings who died fighting the Harvesters, Carter said to the assembled delegates. Human names and alien names side by side. They died protecting worlds they had never seen, defending people who had once rejected them. Chancellor Vorthak, one of the few original council members to survive the war, spoke quietly from his seat. We have learned that diversity of thought and approach is not a weakness to be controlled, but a strength to be cherished. The galaxy survived because one species refused to think like all the others. Carter nodded, but her expression remained serious. The architect records indicate this cycle will repeat. In 50,000 years, or perhaps sooner, the Harvesters will return. When that day comes, the galaxy must be ready with new ideas, new technologies, and new ways of thinking. Outside the station's windows, exploration vessels from a dozen species worked together to investigate the galaxy's outer regions. They were searching for more harvester machines, more ancient ruins, and more knowledge that might help future generations survive. Among them, the human ship Second Chance led a joint mission into uncharted space, carrying the lessons of the past and hope for a future where cooperation mattered more than conformity.